Hi, I'm glad to see everybody. Let me introduce myself. My name is Victoria Nikolaevna Golovacheva, and I am a professor, Department of Information and Computing Systems, course Java Software Application Development for students of educational program Information Systems. Today we have lecture number 5. Topic: functions and methods in Java. Please guys look on the slide number 2. It presents the plan of our lecture. We have 2 large questions. The first question is functions, and the second question is methods in Java. The purpose of our lecture is to explore functions as well as methods in the Java programming language. Please look on the slide number 4. It presents the definition of functions. What does it mean? Definition. Functions are similar to miniature programs and are collectively called subroutines. Okay, next slide. The introduction of functions was a significant step in the development of programming. Next slide presents the following information. Using functions has the following benefits. The first benefit is saving code by placing repetitive parts of programs in a function. The second benefit, it allows a group of programmers to work on one complex task. And the third benefit, the function makes it easier to read, make changes, and correct errors in the program. So guys, please look on the slide number 7. It presents the following information. A function is a small program that performs certain actions when called by name. The Java programming language has many built-in and ready-to-use functions, but nobody bothers the user to create their own functions. Based on the above, a custom function can be called a function that the developer himself created to solve a specific problem. The direct process of writing functions is considered a procedural programming approach. Okay. Next slide, guys. You can see a question. What is usually put in functions? As a rule, we are talking about repetitive program code. Accordingly, so that the programmer doesn't write the same lines of code over and over again. It simply puts these lines into a separate block and then calls this block in the main Java code of the program when needed. Going further, there are two types of functions in Java. The first type, a function that returns something. And the second type, a function that returns nothing. In addition to this, a function in Java can be with or without parameters. An important point should be recalled here. A variable that is created in a function dies after the completion of this function. That is, it no longer exists. Okay, let's consider two formulas for creating a function in Java language programming. Please look carefully in this slide. This is what a function in Java consists of. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts. Access specifier. Next, identification of static function. Next part, function type. Next part, function name. Next part, function parameters. And the last part, function body. Please look on the next slide. Creating functions in Java. First, let's create a custom function that returns something. This type of function is used most often because very often you need to calculate something, perform a conversion, etc. That is, we are talking about using the obtaining result outside this function. And since everything that is created in the function dies after its completion, we need the result of this function to return to the main program code. The return statement is used for this. Okay, guys, please look on the next slide. In the middle of this slide, you can see a programming code. So, let's create a custom function that will return the value of a variable to you, and also assign this value to a variable in the main code. Public class main. First line, public static in function. 1 round brackets. Comment access identifier function is static. Yes. Return type, function name without parameters. Next line, int a equal 5, comment. Create a variable with a value. Next line, return a, comment, return the value when calling this function. And next line, public static void main, in the round brackets you can see string, square bracket, arg, comment, block of the main code of our program. Thus, a variable is created with is then returned in the place needed by the developer. But in general, in the body of custom function, we can write any code, for example, to create arrays, loops, and other structures. Okay, next slide, guys. You can see a programming code. Now, let's create a function in Java that doesn't return anything. This type of function can be useful when working with global variables or if you need to print and display something. By and large, there are no special differences between writing functions and both types. The main thing is to specify a different type, void, and not use return. Please look carefully in this programming code. You can see statement sign up for autis courses and the main block of our program. Okay. Next slide. Calling functions without parameters. To work with functions, getting any result from them, you need to call the function in the right place by name. Let's take advantage of the functions we're writing and or written and call them in the main code. Please look carefully in this programming code. You can see statement sign up for autos courses. Main block of the program. Next, assign the variable's value that the first function will return. Next line, display the value of our variable. And next function 2, call the second function by name. The output will be as follows: 5 and sign up for autis courses. Okay, it should be added that a function that returns something must be called as indicated in the example. That is, the return value must be assigned to something. Next slide, guys, please. Creating function with parameters. Sometimes you need to perform some action on the values. To do this, you need to pass the same values to our custom function. When values are passed to our function, they become its function arguments. So let's create a function with parameters and then call it in the main code using arguments. Raise the variable to a certain degree and then return the value to the variable. The necessary parameters must be specified when creating a function. We are talking about variables in brackets after the function name. In this case, the argument must be passed without fail. Otherwise, the function simply will not work because it simply will not have a value with which to iterate. Arguments must be specified when calling the function. Two integer values. Okay. Please, guys, look carefully in this programming code. You can see several lines, public class main, and several lines. Comments. Function with parameters, first line. Next, create a variable in which the calculated value will be located. Next line, using a cycle for exponentiation. Next line, we multiply the new value with the old one, thereby raising to the power. Next line, return the calculated value. Next line, main block of the program. Next line, call the function by passing two arguments, raise 5 to the third power. Okay? And next line, display the value of the variable. We will see the following value in the console: 125. Thus, a function in Java, we can put anything we want. In our case, the arguments must be passed without fail. Otherwise, an error will occur. Okay, guys, please look on the next slide. It presents the following information. Functions can be called small subroutines, where you can take our repetitive code and call it when you need it. Functions greatly facilitate the construction of programs, since we don't need to copy the same type of code many times, but we can simply use one common function. Many people confuse functions and methods and don't understand the differences between them. In fact, there are no differences, since the methods and functions are the same. Functions that are written outside of classes are called functions, and functions that are written inside classes are called methods. Since Java is an object-oriented language, you already know about it, and it's better to say methods, although it doesn't matter at all. The situation is exactly the same with the variable. In classes, variables are called fields, and outside of classes, they are called variables. Please, guys, look on the next slide. It presents the following information. To create functions, you must specify the return data type, specify the name and parameters. In the case when the function doesn't return anything, then the void data type is indicated. An access modifier is always written before the data type. Now, we will not consider them in detail, since this is an object-oriented programming topic. In the lesson, we will constantly set the public modifier. Thereby, we will say that the function is available to everyone inside the class. Please look on the next slide. You can see a question, why static? Since we want to access functions directly without creating an object, we use the static keyword. It tells the compiler that the function belongs to the entire class, not specific objects. Please, guys, look on the next slide. You can see create a function. Please look carefully in the middle of this slide. Based on all the data, our function will look like this. Public static void test round brackets, curly brackets or braces, system.out.print, and you can see information outputting something to the console. The above function takes no parameters and returns nothing. It just writes a word to the console. Let's diversify the function and add a parameter. Please look carefully in this code that's located in the middle of the picture. The function now accepts a parameter that will be displayed in the console. If the function should return something, then we write the data type that will be returned. To return data, we use the return keyword. Keyword return. Please look carefully in this programming code. Public static double, that double sum underscore number, sum underscore number, asterisk equals to return sum underscore number. Next slide, guys. It presents the following information. You can see definition of a method. Okay, a method is a named block of code that is declared inside class and can be reused. Thus, it follows that properties of the method belongs to a class and cannot be declared out of class. A well-written method solves one practical problem. The new method is first declared and defined, then called on the desired object or class. What are methods for? In programming, methods are ordinary pieces of code that can be used or called anywhere in the program class if the method is defined in them. Consider the method or displaying information on the screen, print line, round brackets. Is a method that contains dozens of lines of code, but so that the programmer does not have to rewrite all the code. Methods were invented. Thus, methods usually contain code or a specific algorithm that must be used more than once in a program. Method declaration in Java, the public and static keyword. Before you can start working with methods, you must declare it using the public and static keywords. The public keyword tells the computer that the method is public and everyone can access it. The keyword static tells the computer that the method is static and can be used without instantiating the class. Method declaration in Java. After we have written the keywords public, static, and return type, for example, int, integer, we need to name our method, then put brackets followed by curly braces. The method name can be anything. This is what the declaration for a method named method looks like in Java that returns an integer. Public, static, int method, round brackets, and curly braces return 3. Note, this method returns an integer 3. Next slide, guys, please. You can see method declaration in Java. Any method in Java performs a specific task and upon execution, it obliged to report something to the computer. To determine what a method can return, a concept is introduced, the type of the return value of a method. There can be many types of return values, but there are basic types. Type int, integer type, the method returns an integer. Type double, fractional type, the method returns a fractional number. Type string, string type, the method returns a string. Type void, empty type, the method returns nothing. Method declaration in Java the return keyword. When declaring the method, the return keyword was used. This word gives the computer the value of the type that we specify after the static keyword. Thus, method can execute a specific algorithm and return a specific value using the return keyword. The method doesn't return value to empty. It should return it to variable or another method. Example, int a equals method round bracket. An exception is a method with a void return type. It doesn't require a variable. Method declaration in Java. Type double and int. If the type is double, then it's necessary to return a fractional number or a variable of a fractional type. Examples of them you can see on this slide. For example, return 3.5 or return bar. If the type is int, then it's necessary to return an integer or a variable of an integer type. Next example, return 3 or return var1. Var1 is an integer variable. Okay. Next slide, guys. Method declaration in Java. Type, string, and void. If the type is string, then it's necessary to return a string or a variable of a string type. For example, return the string is returned in quotes or returns str, where str is a string type variable. If the type is void, then it's forbidden to write the return keyword, i.e., method with a return value void returns nothing and doesn't contain the return keyword. Method declaration in Java. Please look carefully in this programming code. You can see comments. First line, return a fractional number. Next line, comment, return an integer. Return 3. Next line, return a string and return nothing. Last line, return nothing. Calling a method. Working with methods. In order to call a method, you need to write its name, put brackets, and, if necessary, pass values to them. You can see examples. Please look carefully in this programming code with comments. First line, please look first line, create a method, return a plus b. Next line, call the method on the variable. And last line, call a method inside another method. Working with methods very important. In fact, main is also a method. In programming, methods don't know anything about each other, don't know what variables are in them, and work only with their own variables. So, if we declare a variable in main for all other methods of this variable, it will not exist, and in them it will be possible to create a variable with the exact same name. Therefore, when we pass variables from main to another method, we are actually passing only the values of these variables. the variables themselves don't change their values when working with them inside main. Please look carefully in these examples. Suppose there is a variable q and a variable z. Let's pass it to the function and see what happens. Please look carefully in this code. Okay, next slide. You can see examples. Working with methods, very important. Thus, the names of the variable parameters of the function have nothing to do with the names of the variables in main, the values of which are passed to the function. Please look carefully in this slide. On this slide, you can see sample program with comments. First line, create a method, return a plus b. Next line, call and return the value summer equals sum in the brackets p5. You can pass regular number system dot out dot println summer, and last can be called anywhere. Next slide, working with methods, the void type. The void return type is necessary when you don't need to return the results of calculations in a function somewhere. Such cases may be methods that require only output to the screen or methods that operate on class variables. Next slide, guys. Working with methods, void type. Example, using the print round brackets methods, print the value of an integer variable that is passed to this method. For example, line public static void print int a system.out.println a in bracket. Comment, no return keyword, public static void main. In brackets, you can see string, square brackets, arcs, int b equals 8, print b, comment the number 8 will be displayed. Now, guys, I recommend you to watch film, educational film, IT program, site, functions, as well as methods. Lesson number 11. Have you any questions, please, guys? And now you can see control questions. You have 6 questions. You should answer this question for self-control using resources, information about Java you already know, and also the internet textbooks, Java textbooks. Thank you very much for your attention.